So this is my Aztec archetype. As with most archetypes, I have a cost to keep them on the field, or a unique way in which they activate their effects. So with the Aztecs, they're similar to the real world Aztecs in that they need tributes to become more powerful. Like the real world Aztecs, they always tribute to the sun god, and it's similar here because the more tributes you have, the more powerful they get. So let's take as the first one, Aztec Warrior Eagle. If it destroys an opponent's monster by battle, I can special summon a slave token on my side of the field, face attack or defense position. Then by tributing a monster I control, it can attack directly this turn. So it's the special summoning of the slave tokens that is helpful in respect of the other effect. Although perhaps I should make it so it can attack directly next turn, so you can tribute the slave token before, so it's not destroyed by opponent's monster. But then that's why you put cards like Wabaku and negate attack in. But I won't go too much into the how you can play them. I mean, I have sort of made a deck about this, but we had some teething problems, so I didn't post up those duels. But anyway, next Aztec Warrior Jaguar. Again, special summons a slave token when it destroys the opponent's monster by battle, and I contribute it to have it gain 1000 attack and 800 defense till the end phase of my next turn. So in a sense, that's better than the Eagle Warriors effect. But essentially, these two Aztec Warriors are on the same level. So basically, there's 4 Aztec classes, and these there's one class below Eagle and Jaguar, and there's 2 classes above them. And then I've reflected that fact in the attack and defense values. But you'll see that. So next is the Aztec High Priest. Aztecs wouldn't be anything without a priest card. So it's a spellcaster, fire attribute, and when it's summoned I select one monster of the Aztec Warrior and its card name, and it allows me to take control of one of my opponent's monsters, and during the end phase I contribute it to special summon their trump card. I think that's a really, really good effect. The trump card doesn't have any negating effects. Its main effect is to gain power when monsters are tributed. Of course, I do have some support cards which would help it stay on the field, but we come to those. And the Otonin are a step up from Eagle and Jaguar. So they've got 100 more attack, 200 more attack and 100 more defense. It's a normal monster, but it's level 4. So Otonin is purely for it's made to help Aztec High Priest, but then it also has other advantages in that it can gain a lot of power quite quickly, being a level 4 of 1900, because there are a few cards in here which help the Aztec gain power. Right, next is the Aztec Slave. During main phase I contribute it for summon the trump card. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce that. Basically, that is the Aztec god of the sun and also the war, actually. So it fits in really, really well with this archetype. So then, when it's tributed, I have to summon another Aztec Slave from my deck to replenish it. I mean, not replenish it, but to replace it, basically, because the Aztecs always needed a good supply of slaves for essentially their tribute. Although I read that Aztec slaves are treated quite well. But anyway, and then you have to pay 500 life points to special summon an Aztec Slave. I might get rid of that, but that's essentially. I mean, I don't want people to abuse it in other decks like they do with Destiny Hero Malicious. But essentially, Aztec Slave is sort of like a pet in the Dark Clown effect. Then the Aztec Citizen. During the end phase, I special summon a card with Aztec Warrior in its name. Essentially, it's most of the Aztec Citizens would become warriors in the end, because they would go to the Kalmakak and do the training. And there's actually a card for the Kalmakak, because I thought that'd be a nice idea. And basically, the Aztec Citizen then tribute it to negate the activation and effect of an opponent's spell card or spell effect and destroy the card, which is always useful. So it's a great mystical space type encounter, because the Aztec archetype has a few powerful continuous spell cards which need to be used, and we'll come to those in a minute. And the first of which is the Kalmakak. This allows me to special summon an Aztec Warrior if I tributed a monster this turn, but I can also choose to summon an Aztec High Priest instead, because the Kalmakak was also used to train Aztec Priests. Many of the commoners would go in there and train into Aztec Priests. But if you were a bit more noble, then you would become an Aztec Warrior through the Kalmakak. I think they did have some other buildings in which they trained people to become warriors, but I think this was the main one. And then you've got the Altar for Sacrifice. This is not to be confused with Altar for Tribute, which is a completely different card and also a trap card. So Altar for Sacrifice needs Pyramid of the Sun on the field, another continuous spell card, and if it is in the field, I can take control of one level 5 or lower monster from my opponent inside the field. As with the Slave tokens, it cannot declare an attack of using a material monster. Of course, I can attribute it, which is useful for the Aztecs. Essentially, I didn't want people to abuse the monsters that they take control too much, but then there's still a lot of things you could do with them. But anyway, and then if I remove and play what's in the graveyard, I can select one Pyramid of the Sun in my graveyard and activate, or special summon one Aztec High Priest from my hand. Again, that other effect is really useful, just like its first effect. Yeah, next we come to the most powerful of the Aztec warriors. Okay, some of these names are just I don't know how people couldn't pronounce these, but my pronunciation is normally decent, but then these names are just copied and pasted from various websites, because I have done quite a bit of research into this archetype. So anyway, this Aztec warrior is the most powerful. So it's got, I think it's got well, basically it's got 400 more attack and defense than the previous most powerful one. That was the Otonin. So and then also its level is level 5, and it comes special summoned from the deck. But then if you're on face up Pyramid of the Sun, you can special summon it from your hand. And as with the other ones, I can special summon a Slave token if it destroys an opponent's monster by battle. And then I attribute one monster I control to have this card attack twice during the same battle phase. So that is a very useful effect. And then I've got the Aztec Worker. This is basically the searcher for Pyramid of the Sun. So essentially it's a field searcher. It's the same principle, except Pyramid of the Sun is a continuous spell card, not a field spell card. And then it also has a special summon effect, whereby if I control a fifth attack or defense position Aztec monster, then I special summon it from my hand. Next, these are the two most important cards in the archetype. So Pyramid of the Sun increases the attack and defense of all phases monsters with Aztec in their card name by 200 points. So that's always useful. But then, if I control face up Aztec High Priest, I special summon one. I'm not even going to pronounce that, from my deck. I mean, you could see it on screen basically. But yeah, that is good. But then I have to tribute one other monster that isn't Aztec High Priest. So because the priest would never tribute themselves for the Sun God. Let's be clear about that. So essentially, that part of the effect, not being able to tribute an Aztec High Priest, is sort of me trying to add some realism to the archetype. But I suppose this is Yu-Gi-Oh! And they do blow a lot of things out of proportion. But anyway, so its final effect is when a monster is tributed by the effect of Pyramid of the Sun, I can all Aztec monsters in their card, well, all monsters with Aztec in their card name gain 1000 attack till the end phase. So that's all Aztec monsters and all Aztec warrior monsters essentially. And then next one, that's number 12. I'm not going to pronounce that, but it has the same level, attribute, attack, defense, and type as Master Hyperion, another card which is based on Sol, the sun of our solar system. And there can only be one of these placed up on the field, but as with the Aztec warriors, it can special summon a Slave token when it destroys a monster my opponent controls. And then during the end phase, I can tribute a monster I control to have this card gain a 500 attack and defense, which is useful. But then if I don't tribute this card to gain attack and defense, then this card, the monster is destroyed. So it works on the principle that the Aztecs were scared that the sun wouldn't rise the next day if they didn't have enough human sacrifices. So that's where that idea comes in. And then also I think perhaps if I keep triggering monsters, it might become a bit too powerful. So I suppose there has to be a downside. No, a lot of the trump cards, they don't have much of a downside, but this one it has quite a big downside. But then there is a card which works really well with it actually, a counter trap, and we'll come to that. So next is the weakest of the Aztec warriors, the Mace Hualatin. I hope I pronounced that right, but probably not. But basically, as with the other ones, you press on a slave token in face of attack or defense, and then I contribute one monster I can build. Search my deck for an Aztec slave or Aztec worker into my hand. 2 really useful cards. I suppose that effect isn't as powerful as some of the other ones, but it's still quite good. And the Atlas, this is one of the weapons the Aztecs used in combat. I think it's got a really nice effect personally, so when a monster with Aztec in its card name declares an attack, I can change the battle position of the attack target and inflict 100 damage for each level of the monster. So if it's level 4, inflict 400. Perhaps I should change that to 200, I don't know. But when the Atlas is sent to the graveyard while equipped to a monster, I can select one Atlas in my deck and add it to my hand. The deck is then shuffled. Unlike most equipped spell cards, it doesn't allow the monster to gain attack, but then I still think it's got a good effect. And finally, we've got the Sun God's Wrath counter trap. This can only be activated when I control the face appearance of the sun, and it negates the activation effect with the effect of an effect monster. That's a mouthful. And it destroys the card. And then if I control the face up, well, you know what that card is. That monster is removed from play instead of being sent to the graveyard, and I can add one monster that includes Aztec Warrior and its card name out to my hand. And then it also says this card's activation effect cannot be negated by any other card, which is really nice. So that means no Dark Bribe, no Seven Tools of the Bandit, no Curse of Royal. Wait, no, Curse of Royal wouldn't work on this, but we have cards like that basically. And yeah, I think although it's a bit specific, but then it's got a really good effect. So I guess people would use that if Aztecs were made into a proper archetype. But yeah, someone actually made on Yu-Gi-Oh! Card Maker, they made a mechanical version of Aztecs, and they added a H onto the end to make it Aztec. Although when I pronounce it, you can't really notice the difference. But it's a bit of a coincidence that they made it at the same time as I made this archetype. I think that's a good idea, but I personally wanted to stick to the original Aztecs rather than have mechanical incarnations of them, because I'm just obsessed with realism. That's probably the main part. Like I've got a black hole archetype, and they work by removing play cards in the graveyard to keep them on the field, and they have powerful effects which allow them to destroy cards on the field when their summon is declared. So essentially, before they're even on the field, they can just destroy cards. But then, if you don't remove and play cards in the graveyard, some of them have to remove and play cards in both players' graveyards to stay on the field. But most of them, it's just cards in your graveyard. So that's a good effect. But then, of course, if you've got no cards left in your graveyard, you can't have them. So essentially, they would be a good partner for a Light Sworn deck. So you have a Light and Darkness black hole thing going on, because they would mill the deck, and then that would be fuel for the black holes. But yeah, so I hope you enjoyed this, and I might show some of my other archetypes if this is popular. Essentially, this is my favourite archetype to date, although I do also like my fungus archetype, but I haven't got as many cards for that. But I try to base them on real things rather than Konami will base it on anything really. But there are certain things I really think would make good archetypes, but they haven't made archetypes for them yet. You know, I was going to make some new ninja cards, but Konami beat me to it. I think I've gone on for long enough, so I hope you enjoyed the video, as I said probably already. And I'll have some more Pokemon battles later on in the week. At the moment I don't have much time, although I'll try to get some on as soon as possible, and I'll see you later.